Well, hey there, guys. Greetings and salutations, and welcome to Open Mic, the show where the mic is open, the floor, as they say, is yours. What do you want to talk about? That is what we are here to discuss on our more kind of casual, laid-back version of our John Campea Show. We're just going to be hanging out and talking, very casual. My name, of course, is John Campea. Good to have you guys here. Thanks for joining me this afternoon on a day that I'm still trying to recover from that Madam Web screening. Yeah. Madam Web. Madam Web. A movie so bad. I still don't think quite as bad as Morbius. Maybe I'll have to, I never thought I'd say this. Maybe I'll have to go back and watch Morbius again. Never thought I'd say those words, but maybe I need to go back and watch Morbius again to really make a determination on if I think one will be better than the other. But I'll stand right now by I actually think Madam Web isn't quite as bad as Morbius, but like truly horrendous, just terrible film. Just so bad. So bad, in fact, it raises the question of should Sony just give the Spider-Man character roster back to Marvel? We'll talk about that in a second. Want to let you guys know that the show here, Open Mic, is really just to take your thoughts and questions and stuff like that. And there's two different ways to get a comment, thought, or question on the show. The first way, and the primary way, is to use our tip link that you can use anytime, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, when we're not streaming, when we're not live. If it's 3 a.m, you can go to our tip link that's right here at Stream Elements, or there it is right there, streamelements.com/John Campea/tip, and send it in that way. Or if you are watching live, and you got to be watching live to do this, you can use the super chat feature in the live chat to send in a question. The super chats are open right now. I will be shutting them off at some point because, you know, at some point I got to go home and have dinner with my wife. But that's the two ways you can get it on. All right. With that said, let's talk about this for a second. Like I mentioned a little bit earlier, Madam Web is a movie that was so bad that it it begs the question of should Sony just be giving the Spider-Man and their roster back to the good folks over at Marvel. Now, I'm actually going to put up a poll in the live chat. For those of you who are watching live, I'm going to put up a poll right now. And it's a very specific question. I want you to hear the question because I'm not just going to ask you guys to answer the question, should they give them back? But the question is, if you were in charge of Sony, I keep writing Donnie instead of Sony. If you were in charge of Sony, would you think it's time to give the Spider-Verse back to Marvel? And it's a simple thing, yes or no, because it's a different question, isn't it? Asking if they should just give them back, or asking the question, if you were in charge of Sony right now, would you give them back? Because I think amongst the fandom, it would be like 90% to 10%. Should Sony give the Spider-Verse back? You know, 90% of people would say yes, especially after coming off of something like Morbius and, Morbius and Madam Web sat back. We're just going to let that, it's already over 100 votes right now. We're just going to let that run for a minute. And the reasons one would ask such a question are obvious, because even if you take, say, the worst MCU movies of late, I'm not going to say the Marvels, because while I didn't think the Marvels was all that good, I didn't think the Marvels was all that bad, to be honest with you. It was certainly a big step down from the first Captain Marvel, but say something like Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, or say Thor: Love and Thunder, right? Those two movies are still infinitely better than Morbius and Madam Web, right? Like if you compare the worst they've put out in terms of the theatrical releases. We're not talking about Disney Plus shows. We're talking about theatrical releases. The Marvel shows are still infinitely better than, Morbius and Madam Web. Infinitely better. Even if you look at Venom. Now listen, you guys know I really enjoyed Venom. The first one in particular. I had a ball, and I don't care how many of you want to go, Venom sucked. That's fine. You're entitled to your opinion. That's fine. I personally had a really good time with Venom. I was like thoroughly entertained. Had a very, very good time with it. But even then, even saying that, I would say that Venom, if it was in the MCU, would be mid-tier Marvel Cinematic Universe. Like, I'd put it on the same level, and again, I had a blast with it, but I'd put it on the same level as, say, the first Doctor Strange, or the first Ant-Man movie, or, stuff like, I like good, solid, really good time, entertained, but kind of mid-tier. Like, even Venom, which I think represents the best they've done live action in recent years, I wouldn't put it up in the same tier with, Civil War, with Winter Soldier. I wouldn't put it up there in the same tier with Black Panther or with Avengers, any of the Avengers movies. I wouldn't put it up there with, the top tier stuff. So at their best, Sony's movies live action would be considered mid-tier Marvel, and their worst movies are far worse than Marvel's worst movies, right? I like that. Somebody in the live chat who was Equity Group is saying Spider-Man 3 was a better Venom film. I thoroughly disagree with you, but that's a funny comment. I like that. That's funny. Yeah, and Venom 2, I thought would be low, not bottom, but lower tier MCU. I still enjoyed, not nearly as much as the first Venom. I still enjoyed Venom 2, but then you had Morbius, and then you got Madam Web, and now we got Kraven coming up here. That I've had enthusiasm for, and I have had optimism for Kraven, but Morbius and Madam Web have really kicked my enthusiasm balls. They have kicked my enthusiasm. The left ball is enthusiasm, the right ball is optimism, and Morbius and Madam Web have just kicked those two balls squarely and taken a lot of the juice out of that enthusiasm and optimism that I've had for Kraven. So let's investigate for a second. Now, we're several hundred votes in. When I asked you guys in the live chat, if you were in charge of Sony, would you think it's time to give back the Spider-Verse to Marvel? 54% of you say yes. I got news for you. You wouldn't be in your job as CEO of Sony for very long if you did that. Anyway, 54% of you are saying yes. If you were in charge of Sony, you would think it's time to give the Sonyverse back to Marvel. 47% of you would keep your job as CEO and are saying no, they would not. And yes, V. Lang, I think you're right. I think the people are saying they would give it back are lying. There's a couple things we need to keep in mind here. And I want to look at this from a couple of different points of view, if you'll indulge me. As rough as things appear to be going for Sony and the Spider-Verse, a couple of things to keep in mind. Venom 2, for whatever you want to say about it, made more money at the box office than all 8 DCEU films made at the box office in the last 5 years. Let me say that again. Venom 2 made more money at the box office than any of the DCEU films of the last 5 years, the last 8 things. As a matter of fact, the two Venom movies together have made over $1.3 billion. The two Venom films combined have made over $1.3 billion. That's close, not quite, but close to what the two Deadpool movies have made combined. Come on, that puts things in perspective a little bit, right? Puts it in perspective a little bit. I'm not saying the Venom movies are as good as the Deadpool movies, heavens no, but I'm just saying okay, here we are. We're Sony. We've got this Spider-Verse property, and the Venom movies combined have made over $1.3 billion. Across the Spider-Verse, now that's the animated side, but still theatrical releases. Across the Spider-Verse came real close to making $700 million at the box office. So combined, the two Spider-Verse animated films have made over $1 billion. There's like over $2.3 billion there alone between the two Spider-Verse animated films, with a Spider-Man most of the general public have never even heard of, with Miles Morales, right? The general movie-going public is like, Spider-Man is Peter Parker. So they introduced a brand new Spider-Man and combined those two animated films, made over $1 billion or close to $1 billion. And you got the Venom films have made like $1.3 billion. There's $2.3 billion in box office right there. Now, on top of that, you now have to take in consideration, unfortunately, it doesn't end with the Spider-Verse films and with the Venom films. You've also got to deal with Morbius and now Madam Web. I would say this. If I were the head of Sony, now is absolutely not the time to entertain the idea of letting Marvel get the Spider-Verse back. You're winning Academy Awards and making big box office with the Spider-Verse films, with the, Across the Spider-Verse and Into the Spider-Verse films. Your third film coming up is Beyond the Spider-Verse, is wildly anticipated. That movie could make $800 million. That movie by itself might make $800 million. You got a Venom 3 coming up with Tom Hardy, right? And Tom Hardy's proved to be a pretty good has proved to be a pretty good steward of the Venom brand. Mr. I's asking, was there a post-credit scene? No, there's no post-credit scene. Thank God. Nothing to make you stay in the seat any longer. Again, now listen, I'm just asking you guys, put your fanboyism, and it's hard for us. I admit, it's hard for us to set our fanboyism aside for a second, but put your fanboyism aside for a second and think logically. You've had two big stinker bombs with Madam Web and Morbius, but the other two offerings you've made with Across the Spider-Verse and Into the Spider-Verse and Venom 1 and Venom 2 have made north of $2.3 billion and are actually pretty darn successful. So would you say right now is really the time to entertain letting Marvel have the Spider-Verse back? I gotta say, I think you would be crazy. I'm not saying you're crazy if you're just a fan and wishing that Marvel would get them back. I'm not saying you're crazy for that. I'm saying if you're the CEO of Sony, if you're putting yourself in the shoes of the CEO of Sony and you're actually contemplating giving or letting Marvel take the Spider-Verse back at this point, I think you're crazy. All due respect to my fellow film fans, but I think you're nuts. 4 of the films have made you combined $2.3 billion, and you've had 2 that stunk. Okay. All right. That's fine. That's fine. You've won actually a couple of Academy Awards with these films as well. People are dying to see the third film in your Miles Morales trilogy. Everybody's excited about it. I'm excited to see Venom 3. But if I'm the CEO of Sony and the next film, Kraven, which by the way, when does Kraven come out? Let me look this up. Kraven the Hunter release date. August 30th. March, April, May, June, July. 6 months. Not that far off. So if Kraven, I will say this, if I'm the CEO of Sony and if Kraven is on the same level of Morbius and Madam Web, I start to entertain the idea of letting the property go. But I would be getting on the phone and calling Kevin Feige. Hey, Kevin, you want the Spider-Verse stuff back? And Kevin, of course, would say, sure, John. Yeah, I'm interested in getting the Spider-Verse back. How much you want for it? You ever see Pawn Stars? It would kind of be like a Pawn Stars negotiation. So Kevin being Rick in this situation, I suppose, would say, sure, I'm interested. I'm very interested in bringing the Spider-Verse stuff back home to Disney. I'm interested in that. How much are you looking to get for us to get the Spider-Man back? The question becomes now, if you're the CEO of Disney or a CEO of Sony, how much would you be willing to let it go for? Understanding that you've made some money with these films. We're not even talking about the Sam Raimi era. We're only talking about the modern era. Like, if we wanted to bring in the Sam Raimi era and even the Amazing Spider-Man stuff with Andrew Garfield, now you're talking about huge box office dollars. But I'm just talking about the more up-to-date era. Into the Spider-Verse, Venom, forward, okay? Now, Amir is saying $8 billion, no chance in hell. Even if you add together all of the Sam Raimi Spider-Verse stuff and everything, you're not coming anywhere close to that. So $8 billion is way out of the question. Nobody in the right mind would do that. Sam McCauley saying $7.5 billion. I still think that's too high. I think Michael Jones has a ballpark, $3 billion. I think that's the ballpark. The ballpark, I think if I'm Sony, that I'm looking to get is $3 billion. Now, you might be saying, but John, Venom alone made like $1.3 billion. Yeah, but that wasn't in profit. That's $1.3 billion they made in the box office, but that's not how much profit they made, right? We're talking about a clean $3 billion. Alton Wang is saying $700 million. You'd be out of your job as the CEO if you sold the Sony rights, the Spider-Man rights back to Marvel for $700 million. You'd be looking for a new job real fast. But $3 billion, I think that's a sweet spot. Now, here's the problem, though. I don't know that Marvel would buy it for $3 billion. Right? Because it's fine to ask for whatever you want to ask for. I don't know that right now the Spider-Verse stuff is worth $3 billion to them right now. I don't know that that's the case. Because they already have, remember, Marvel has a very full slate right now. Between their already existing MCU, now they're bringing in Fantastic Four, now they're bringing in all the X-Men with their like 75 movie plausible characters that they can bring in as well. They've got a pretty damn big dance card, not to mention they have Spider-Man in their universe. Because of their other deal with Sony, they can put a live action Spider-Man and only Spider-Man, but they can put Spider-Man in their film. So if I'm Sony, I'm not giving up those Spider-Man rights for anything less than $3 billion. But if I'm Marvel, I'm not sure I'm willing to put up $3 billion. I don't know. Now, Dom was asking, well, like, what about the video game rights? Those are separate deals. The video games and stuff like that are separate deals. Because Disney's not going to make their Spider-Man video game. Those are separate deals, removed from that stuff. So that would be unaffected. Like if they gave the Spider-Man rights back to Disney, Disney would still license out the video game rights. So I don't think that's not something we have to worry about. That's where it's going to become a problem. There's no way if you're Sony, you should be selling back the rights to Spider-Man for anything less than $3 billion. $3 billion I think that's the number. But if you're Marvel, I don't know that you think it's worth it to you right now to pay that much to get them back. So even then, you're left at a stalemate. So even if, this is the problem, even if Sony was willing to entertain the idea of letting Marvel buy back the rights to the Spider-Verse, I still don't know that anything would actually happen. I still don't know that any deal would happen because Sony wouldn't be able to go any lower, and that might be too high for Disney. So you're kind of stuck. See, and that's the thing that I often like to challenge my fellow film fans on this. It's easy for us to think as fans, right? They should make these, or they should get rid of that, or they should acquire this, or Sony should let Spider-Man go back to Marvel. That's great. We can have those fan conversations. But I like to encourage my fellow film fans, okay, now actually sit down and actually think it through. What would need to happen in order for Sony to sell back the rights to Marvel? And when you actually sit down and try to put yourself in the CEO's chairs, it becomes a little bit more complicated. It becomes a little bit more convoluted, right? It becomes a little bit more convoluted. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. Now, listen, this becomes, would you guys agree that this becomes a little bit of a different conversation if Kraven the Hunter let's not even say great. Let's say if Kraven the Hunter is pretty good. Like, does this become a little bit of a different discussion if Kraven the Hunter is pretty good? Now, I'm not asking you to go, no, it's going to suck, or no, it's going to be the best. Just let me ask you the question. How does this change? Because if Kraven the Hunter comes out and is like, you know what, that wasn't bad. That was pretty good. I mean, it's not Black Panther or anything, but it was all right. All right. We're not talking about whether it makes money or not. If the movie comes out and is pretty good and it makes people go, that was kind of fun. That was good. And let's continue this theoretical rabbit hole. Let's say Kraven the Hunter comes out and is pretty good. Again, not even great. And then Venom 3 comes out and is like somewhere between Venom 1 and Venom 2 in quality. Like another good one, a good one. Not great, but good. Well, then all of a sudden, Sony's not looking to get out of the Spider-Man business anytime soon, right? At all, by any stretch of the imagination. So it's a complicated question, my friends. So at the bottom, for those of you who are joining us a little bit late, the bottom line for me is, if I'm Sony's CEO, I think the rational thing is here, I would entertain giving back the rights for $3 billion. But that still won't be enough to make a deal, because there's no way. I don't think Marvel's going to spend $3 billion to get them back. So I don't think it's worth it to them. I don't think it's worth $3 billion to them right now to get them back. So we'll see. I'm sure a lot of you guys will have some thoughts about that. We'll get to those in just a bit. But before we do anything else, let's get to your questions here, shall we? Let's get things rolling here. And we're going to start things off here with Big Al, who's saying, do you think Feige will appear as himself in Deadpool and Wolverine? That's actually, yeah, I do. It's as meta as it gets. Since Deadpool is very much aware of the existence of the MCU, I would lose it in the theater. Even better if Wade wears a black baseball cap afterwards. So listen, you already know this is the type of thing that Kevin Feige would do, because he had his Kevin robot, right? He kind of had a representation of himself in that terrible She-Hulk show. And listen, I'm not going to lie. The Kevin bot thing in She-Hulk was dumb. I'm not saying it wasn't. It was dumb. But I would be lying to you if I didn't admit to you that when it first kind of revealed on screen, I did chuckle. I'm just being honest with you. I'm just being honest. When it first came up, I kind of chuckled. So there's that. But it shows that Kevin Feige is not above letting himself break the fourth wall and be in an MCU movie, right? So I will say, I'm not saying it's a good idea, but I'm saying I can totally see them doing it, man. I can totally see them doing that. All right. Next up, we got Garden Variety Vagabond, who writes, John, the best way to get one of those vans cheap, get one from somebody who got divorced from living too close to his wife and vice versa. All right. Of course, the question then becomes, how on earth do you find somebody selling one of those amazing camper vans who happens to be getting divorced? But I will let you in on, can I tell you a story? True story. So, gosh, getting on 15 years ago, I moved to Los Angeles. I drove across country in my Pontiac Sunfire. That's what I drove at the time. Drove across the country in my Pontiac Sunfire from East Coast Canada all the way to Los Angeles. and I moved in to a 2-bedroom apartment right on the Hollywood Strip on Sunset Boulevard, right in Hollywood. It's kind of a dream. Like I was stars in my eyes. Like, oh, I'm living right. I mean, listen, I'm not gonna lie to you. It was pretty cool for some nobody Canadian kid growing up as a massive movie fan to actually like, oh my God, I'm standing on the Sunset Strip. I'm standing on Sunset Boulevard in Hollywood. The Oscars are held right there. The Star Wars movie had its world premiere in the 70s right there. Like I was pretty freaked out. I was kind of geeking about it. But anyway, and it came time to furnish that apartment. Came time to furnish the apartment. And I got on, I think it was Craigslist. I think Craigslist was around at the time. I got on Craigslist, right? And I'm not going to lie to you. All the best stuff I found was from somebody who just got a divorce. Like I got this, I went and met this guy. He had like, at the time, like this was a pretty big deal, like a 50-inch TV. At the time, that was considered pretty big. But he had 2 of them because he just got divorced, right? And it was like, at the time, like a $2,000 TV. I got it for like $300. And so I was able to, most of the best stuff that I bought to furnish my apartment, garden variety, was sadly, and to add to the sadness, so I bought half of my best stuff was from people who got divorced. The other half of my best stuff that I bought, and I this is like taking advantage of other people's misfortune. But listen, in Los Angeles, thousands of people get off the trains and the buses every day who have moved here from their little hometown to try to pursue their dreams of becoming a music star, a movie star, a whatever star. Make it big in Los Angeles, break into the entertainment industry, right? There's a joke, but it's true. Like 7 out of every 8 waiters or waitresses that serve you in Los Angeles are actually actors or actresses just trying to pay the bills while they try to get discovered and get their big break. The problem is Los Angeles is also a ridiculously expensive place to live. A ridiculously expensive place to live. I told you guys a story when Ann and I, the reason we moved out of Burbank is Ann and I were looking to buy our first house. And we tried to stay in Burbank, but literally a 1-bedroom, 800 square foot house that was kind of like semi-rundown, not a total trash heap, but semi-rundown, was going to cost us $800,000. The rents are crazy. And so what happens is, as every day those people are coming into Los Angeles to pursue their dreams, there's also those people who run out of money. And they either have to sell all their stuff to try to pay the rent, or they got to sell all their stuff because they're moving back home. And I hate saying it, but broken dreams are great places to find a bargain. And like I did not have a lot of money either when I first moved into Los Angeles, and I'm paying rent on this place that is way more than I had ever paid before. But so I was needing to find the best deals I could too. But yeah, I mean, half the stuff I got were from people who just had divorces, and half the stuff I bought were from people who were chasing their dreams in LA and ran out of money. I mean, it's Jamon Lee saying bargain dreams. Yep, that's what it was, bargain dreams. But hey, man, when you got $800 in the bank and you need a sofa, you go onto Craigslist and you'll buy a sofa from anybody who's got one to sell. And that was me at the time. All right, let's keep going here. Sorry, went on a big rabbit trail there. Next up, we got Chip Crisper, who writes, "Hey, John, on Open Mic, someone mentioned Deadpool recognizing the Human Torch, Captain America, etc. It doesn't matter if he's seen them in his universe. Remember, Paradox said he's special. Yeah, but he didn't say how he's special. Deadpool has a sort of meta omniscience. No, he doesn't. He has this knowledge, i.e. Brolin / Thanos / Disney, etc. Okay, yeah, but that's for the sake of fourth wall breaking jokes. Right? Like when he runs into somebody like in Deadpool 1 and 2, when he runs into somebody he doesn't know, he's like, who are you? Like, who the hell are you? Who's this guy? Right? He doesn't have any kind of omniscience. But sometimes for the sake of the jokes, they will kind of weave one in there, and maybe they'll do that with Captain America. It's like, wasn't that guy in the Fantastic Four or something? I hope they do a joke like that. I really do. It would just be too good to pass up. All right. Sam Fisher writes, one of two. I love the potential Fantastic Four costumes. The mod fashion with the astronaut pants and go-go boots with the very 60s Dick Van Dyke sweater. Pascal can 100% play the smartest person in the world. Yeah, he totally can. Even if they're not related, one of the cast members being named Kirby just makes me happy and feels like some karmic justice for Jack Kirby. I can already hear "It's clobbering time, assholes" in the accent Backrack does for Richie. My only question is Quinn, but that's because I haven't seen Stranger Things. Oh yeah, understandably so, but I think he's going to be quite good. Quinn is also going to be, correct me if I'm wrong in the live chat, if I'm wrong about this, but isn't he the dude who played Eddie in Stranger Things? Is he not also going to be in Gladiator 2? I think he's going to be in Gladiator 2. Again, guys in the live chat, correct me if I'm wrong about that, but Raina Gordon is saying yes. Oh, and A Quiet Place Day One. I totally forgot about that, T3. I totally forgot about that. Yeah. That's right. Yeah, so listen, that Stranger Things role that he played really that kicked some doors open. Everybody loved him so much. It really opened the doors for him quite a bit. All right. Next up, we got Riley. What do you think the likelihood is that we get Quentin Tarantino's next movie, The Movie Critic, this year? I don't think because correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think he's even started shooting the movie yet. Like, I know they're casting the film. Now, granted, The Movie Critic would not be a movie that's like heavy visual effects laden, but it's going to take a lot of work because once again, it's a period piece. And remember, for Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, Quentin Tarantino and his crew spent a lot of time like transforming parts of Los Angeles to look like they're from the right decade, right? So even though there may not be a lot of post-production to do in a movie like this, there's going to be a lot of pre-production needed. So, and it's already February, we're 2 weeks away from March. I don't think it's impossible for it to come out this year, but I think it's unlikely. I think it's quite unlikely. Anyway, guys, listen, that's it for the tip questions. We're going to get over to the super chats you guys have been sending in here and get to those, the live questions you've been sending in. But before we do, we're going to take a quick moment and thank a couple of sponsors of today's episode of the John Campea Show, Open Mic, my mobile service provider, and they should be yours, Mint Mobile, and the good folks at Fume. Guys, we want to take a second to thank a sponsor of this video, Mint Mobile. On average, it takes about 30 days for a person to break their New Year's resolution. So if saving money was on your 2024 list, your odds aren't looking that great. Luckily, I have a 100% guaranteed way to save you money this year. Just switch to Mint Mobile. For a limited time, wireless plans from Mint Mobile are $15 a month when you purchase a 3-month plan. That's unlimited talk, text, and data for $15 a month. I've told you guys many times that after switching to Mint Mobile, I am spending less than a third on my cell bill than I used to with a major carrier. Say goodbye to your overpriced wireless plans, jaw-dropping monthly bills, and unexpected overages. All Mint plans come with unlimited talk and text plus high-speed data delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. And don't worry about having to change phones or numbers. Use your own phone with any Mint Mobile plan and bring your phone number along with all your existing contacts. So guys, to get this new customer offer and your new 3-month unlimited wireless plan for just $15 a month, go to mintmobile.com/Campea. That's mintmobile.com/Campea. Cut your wireless bills to $15 a month at mintmobile.com/Campea. Additional taxes, fees, and restrictions apply. See Mint Mobile for details. Guys, we want to take a second to thank a sponsor of today's video, Fume. Have you ever tried to break a bad habit and felt like you're climbing uphill? Yeah, we've been there too. But here's a breath of fresh air. Fume. It's not about giving up, it's about switching up. Fume takes your habit and simply makes it better, healthier, and a whole lot more enjoyable. Fume is an innovative, award-winning flavored air device that does just that. Instead of vapor, Fume uses flavored air. Instead of electronics, Fume is completely natural. And instead of harmful chemicals, Fume uses delicious flavors. You get it. Instead of bad, Fume is good. It's a habit you're free to enjoy and make replacing your bad habit easy. Your Fume comes with an adjustable airflow dial and is designed with movable parts and magnets for fidgeting, giving your fingers a lot to do, which is helpful for de-stressing and anxiety while breaking your habit. I'll be honest with you guys, I was a little uncertain about it until my package arrived and I tried it. I couldn't believe how perfectly balanced it is, how fun it is to have in your hands, and how great the actual flavor was. Plus, Fume just released a magnetic stand for your Fume, so there's no more losing it around the house. So start the year off right with the good habit by going to tryfume.com/Campea and getting the journey pack today. Fume is giving listeners of the show 10% off when they use my code Campea to help make starting the good habit that much easier. And thank you to our friends at Mint Mobile and Fume for sponsoring today's episode of the John Campea Show podcast. All right, guys. With that down, let's get over to your live questions here, shall we? And I got to see if I can find them. Here they are. Okay, great. We're ready to go? We're ready to go. Let's bring up the super chats. All right. Going to kick things off here on the super chat side with, that was from earlier today. Okay, Demarius Love writes, got a theory for Deadpool 3. What if after his time travel shenanigans, the TVA comes to get Wade because he's the last person in his timeline and everyone else is dead? He's just been imagining them and he finally lost his mind. Okay, so first of all, let me do an old thing that goes all the way back to the movie blog days. If you're going to ask a what if question, make sure there's a question in it. Okay, what if after his time shenanigans, he gets well, then they did exactly what you said, right? They make sure you follow it with a question. So anyway, I don't think they're going to do that. I don't think that that's it at all. I think there's going to be very real drama. It looked like in the trailer they were setting up drama between him, because if he was living in an imaginary idyllic world, then him and Vanessa would still be together and be happy, right? But how does the trailer start? It starts with Wade saying, it's been a really rough couple of years. And the trailer seems to suggest that him and Vanessa have broken up. And because they look kind of hurt when they're looking at each other and they look away from each other. And then when he's blowing out the candle, she says, happy birthday, buddy. Right? My thought would be if he were living in an he's just imagining everybody still being alive, you would think that the imaginary world that he's creating for himself to live in would be a happier place, right? Nigel GA saying, buddy, LOL. Let me ask you, guys, would there be any more painful, cutting, gut you words that say, a girl you're crushing on and you're hanging out with, is there any more painful thing she could call you or say to you than buddy? Hey, buddy. Or hey, friend. It goes the other way too. If you're a young woman and you got a person that you're crushing on, is there any more cutting words that other person could say to you than, hey, buddy? Or, pal, as Jay is saying in the live chat. Pal would be another, those brutal, cutting, devastating words. It's be awful. Again, so I don't think they're going to do that just because I think if it was an imaginary world, it would be a happier world, right? It would be like Wanda in WandaVision. Well, it would also kind of be copying WandaVision, but it'd be Wanda in WandaVision. It would be perfect, right? Life is perfect. Life is great. I'm happy. We got great neighbors, wonderful house, my husband, everything's great, right? So that's why I don't think they'll do that. But anyway, interesting theory, Damaris. And by the way, Damaris sent in a $20 super chat. Thank you, man, for supporting us on that level. I appreciate that, dude. All right. Next up, we got Christopher Brickner writes, Madam Web makes me see how important Tom Hardy is to Venom. Completely agree. Venom works more as Tom Hardy is the creative force driving Venom and overseeing quality. Well, yes and no. The reality, Christopher, is that you and I are not there on set to see that that's the case. Maybe it's the producers. Maybe Venom just has better producers working with Tom Hardy. But in general, I tend to agree. I think Tom Hardy is just very, very passionate about Venom. He's very, very passionate about the vision he's got for what kind of movies they want to make with Venom, and they seem to be able to execute. Fingers crossed they're actually able to do it with Venom 3. Because, and I love the Venom movies, I enjoy the Venom movies, but the reality is, even though I still like Venom 2, it was a step down from Venom 1. It wasn't as good as Venom 1. It wasn't as entertaining. So here's hoping that Venom 3 goes back up on a bit of an upswing. All right, next up. Culture Wars Diplomacy writes, as an adult, thinking about He-Man, I realized Adam hiding his identity is counterproductive. Everyone around him is leaders and soldiers of a nation at war that think the Crown Prince is a coward. I don't think they think the Crown Prince is a coward. I think it's just more of a thing of like the standard classic dilemma of the superhero. And He-Man is ultimately a superhero. It's a classic dilemma of a superhero, is that if my enemies know who I am, then the people that I love will be in even more danger, right? Not to mention that as Prince Adam, he can probably get in to things and see things that maybe He-Man wouldn't be privy to. So I can see the advantage of it. Again, though, if they do end up doing this He-Man movie with Travis Knight directing, they cannot do what the cartoon does. And I know there are cartoon purists who'll get mad at me saying this, but you cannot have Prince Adam and He-Man look exactly alike, just wearing different clothes. Because even in his Prince Adam form, right? Let me see if I can bring up a picture of this. I'm not sure I'll be able to find one, but let me see if I can here. Indulge me for a moment. Prince Adam He-Man. See if I come up with a little... that didn't work out so well. Let me try that again. Prince Adam He-Man, right? Because even in his Prince Adam form, right? Yeah, here's a great example of it. Even in his Prince Adam form, he's jacked. He's got the same stupid blonde bowl mullet. It's a bowl and a mullet at the same time. He's incredibly yoked. And he's got the same face. Right? Like, no, he doesn't even have Superman glasses that he can take on and off to become Clark Kent. He just looks... Raymond Verrata in the live chat is saying, I don't see it. Raymond Verrata is saying, I don't see it. I mean, like... They cannot do that with the movie. If you're going to do the movie, you got to have one actor playing He-Man, and you got to have a much smaller, more demure actor playing Prince Adam. That's the way. You can't have it go back and forth because it'd just be so completely ridiculous. All right. Let's see. Oh, who's saying this? Because you're wrong about it. Somebody's saying... where did it go? Somebody was writing they did it because that's the joke. I can't find it in the live chat anymore, but it was in the live. Somebody said, no, John, that's just the joke. Like that's them playing along with the joke. No, it wasn't. You know what it was? It was them saving money on making the toys. It's the same reason that, like, who was Prowl's twin brother? Was it Sideswipe? I think Sideswipe was twin brother. Anyway, when you look at those Transformers toys, they were the exact same toy, just with different paint and different decals. Blue Streak. Thank you, Joseph. That's right. It was Blue Streak. So Blue Streak was the brother. They were the exact same toys, just with different paint. The reason they did that was to save money. It's like, hey, we already got the mold and we're already making these toys. Let's just crank more of them out and call it a totally different toy. Why do you think, staying in the world of Transformers, why do you think Starscream and Thundercracker and why do you think all those jets looked exactly the same? Let me see if I can find a picture of, so you know what I'm talking about. Starscream, Thundercracker toys. Yeah, here we go. So you can see these, right? Skywarp, Starscream, and Thundercracker are all the exact same toy. They're the exact same toy, just with a different paint job. The reason that they had in the cartoon that He-Man and Prince Adam looked exactly alike is so they didn't have to make two different molds for the same character. They didn't have to make two separate molds for the same character. So hopefully they'll correct that for the movie, if the movie ever gets made. All right, thanks for that, Culture Wars. Next up, CM Waters writes, film enthusiast. I know you hated Argyle. Is Madam Web worse? You know, I might have said the word hated, but I don't think I hated Argyle. But I really think it's not good. It's a bad film. Argyle is a bad film. And look, all things subjective. If you liked Argyle, awesome. I celebrate that you liked it. I'm not trying to dissuade you at all, but I thought Argyle was a really, really bad film. But there is a difference between watching a movie and going, man, that was really bad, and like hating a movie. I hated Madam Web. Argyle is a much better film. A much better film than, again, it's just a subjective opinion, but you asked me for my opinion. I'm giving it to you. Madam Web is much worse than Argyle, in my opinion. All right. Next up, Zishan writes, surely AMC A-List is going to ramp up a huge marketing campaign for Superman Legacy and Fantastic Four, right? They didn't miss the boat on Barbin. Wait, well, Zishan, I think you're getting confused about who's responsible for doing marketing campaigns for movies. A-List does not do marketing campaigns for movies. Marketing campaigns for movies are the sole responsibility of the distributor of the movies. In this case, the distributor would be Warner Brothers, and the distributor would be Disney's distribution arm. AMC doesn't do big marketing campaign. They are not the ones who put up the tens and hundreds of millions of dollars. It's the studios that do that. It's their responsibility to do that. Now, that's not to say that AMC A-List won't do special promotions and stuff like that. Of course, sure they do. And they do, but they can't put big money into that because that's the film distributor's responsibility, is to put big pushes into marketing campaigns. The movie theaters, is not their job to do it. They do in-theater marketing. They do some special promotional kind of gimmicks, but the big promotion stuff is done by the distributors, not by the movie theaters. All right. Next up, Alex Von Gollum writes, hey, John, given the hype and the rich storyline that Dune 2 will have, it would be great if you do an open spoiler discussion. We haven't had one in a while. You know what? 100% agree. 100% agree. And actually, you know what? A whole bunch more reviews and first reactions have come out. Because remember, we did it on the show the other day. We talked about the first reactions coming out from Dune from the first public screening they did in Paris. Remember, we talked about this on the show, I think, yesterday. Well, last night was the big premiere in London. And the reviews, the reactions are every bit as stunning as the ones from Paris. Jaw-dropping masterpiece, perfection, all that kind of stuff. Was like everybody's like, I haven't seen the movie, so clearly I'm half jesting, but I'm calling now. Dune 2 is going to win Best Picture at the Academy Awards next year. Dune 2 will win Best Picture at the Academy Awards next year. It's got to happen. Now we'll see. We'll see how well it comes across. But yeah, everybody's just raving about it, and I cannot. So yes, I will be doing an open spoiler discussion for Dune 2 when the time comes to do it. I will do one. All right, thanks, Alex. Next up, Jesse Roy writes, screw Sony. I wanted to see Marvel's A, B, C list characters on the screen, but not with Sony. Please, Marvel, buy them back with real writers. If Craven is so bad, I'm going to go insane. And again, listen, Sony has made more good Spider-Man movies than bad, right? depending on how you judge a couple of swing movies. Spider-Man 1, everybody acknowledges is really good. Spider-Man 2 is beyond good. It's super exceptional. It's one of the great comic book movies. Spider-Man 3, not so much. The Amazing Spider-Man 1, I thought was really good. The Amazing Spider-Man 2, not so much. Into the Spider-Verse, amazing. Across the Spider-Verse, amazing. Venom 3, really good. Venom 2, pretty good. Morbius and Madam Web. I mean, so like as of right now, Sony is still batting over 500, right? Sometimes they do a really good job. Sometimes they do a piss poor job. And listen, here's the thing, Jesse. You can say, I want to see Marvel's B and C-list characters on the screen with Marvel. That's great. You're never going to see them, though. That's the problem. Marvel has so many characters right now. And what did Bob Iger just say they're about to do? Cut back. When do you think they're going to get around to making that C-list Spider-Man character that you want to see? When do you think they're going to get around to doing that? Probably never. 2039? See, and that's the inherent problem, right? You say, I want Marvel to have these characters because I want to see Marvel make those movies. That's great, but Marvel ain't going to make those movies because Marvel has so many characters. And Bob Iger just said, we're going to start making less. We're going to start making fewer. So it's kind of a catch-22, right? It's a little bit of damned if you do and damned if you don't situation. You see what I'm saying, Jesse? Thanks for sending your thoughts, man. I appreciate that, dude. All right, next up. Haunted Autumn says, give back, no, sell back. Well, we kind of implied that. So yeah, I see what you're saying. Sell back, probably. But in a world where Sony re-released Morbius because they, at every level, failed to understand meme culture, it won't happen. It's idiocracy over there. We're talking about not just one or two individuals, but teams of people released Morbius and put out Madam Web. Tony's live action Marvel division is being held together by scaffolding of ineptitudes. I mean, it's hard to disagree when you look at just Madam Web and Morbius. Of course, they've done some other things. Into the Spider-Verse won the Academy Award. Across the Spider-Verse will probably win the Academy Award. Venom films have made $1.3 billion. I mean, so yes, if you look in isolation at Morbius and Madam Web, but here's the thing though, to your point, Haunted Autumn, to your point, how any group of leadership looks at Madam Web coming together and then 6 months ago looks at the finished product of Madam Web and thinks, yeah, we can release this. I understand that the Across the Spider-Verse films have been massively successful. I understand the Venom films have been hugely successful. But when your leadership is leadership that, number one, makes Morbius, okay? That's fine. That's fine. Everybody falls on their face once in a while, right? Spielberg has made a bad movie or two. Everybody makes it. Studios are going to fall on their face. Okay, Morbius was a flat fall on their face. Okay, fine. It happens. It happens. Happens to every studio. It happens. It sucks that it happened, but it happened, and it's not the be-all, end-all. Morbius sucked. Fine. Let's move on, right? How does the leadership look at the results they got from Morbius? I'm not talking box office results. I'm talking quality results. How does the leadership at Sony look at the results they got from Morbius and then say, let's rehire the guys who wrote the script to that one to write the script for this new Madam Web movie? How does that happen? How does that happen? There are people who get paid big money to make these kinds of decisions And I got to assume on some level, in some ways, there must be really smart people because they got those jobs. And I'm sitting here sucking on Halls and sipping Diet Pepsi. And they have the big high-paying jobs. How do you look at that and sign them up to do the next one? Now, Orphan Amin is saying maybe they had a contract. That's irrelevant. In the entertainment industry, contracts don't mean anything except for the studios. Remember, a studio can have a contract with a 5-movie contract with an actor, right? To play, I don't know, Captain Dick in Hand, okay? So Sony makes a superhero movie called Captain Dick in Hand. And they decide, you know what? We need Pauly Shore. We need Pauly Shore to play Captain Dick in Hand. And so they sign Pauly Shore to a 5-film deal. Now, the way it works in Hollywood is that 5-film deal does not mean that Sony has to use Pauly Shore for all 5 films. It just means Pauly Shore has to do the movies if Sony say they want him. But if they don't want to use Pauly Shore anymore after one movie, they don't have to. That's the way these contracts work. So even if they had some kind of contract, John is workshopping pitches. Even if they had some kind of contract, it wouldn't matter because you go, ooh, hey, you remember how we took a shot on those guys who made Dracula Untold, Gods of Egypt, The Last Witch Hunter? Remember how we took a shot on those guys to make Morbius and turned out really bad? Yeah, maybe we shouldn't use them to write the next movie. Yeah, maybe we should. How does that happen? Captain Dick in Hand deserves better. Justice for Dick in Hand. Start the hashtag. Is that still a thing? Start the hashtag. Justice for Dick in Hand. So, and that's the part that gets me. Is they had a couple of big wins. And I think everybody needs to acknowledge that. They've had a couple of big wins. But how does this happen? How does it happen? I just don't know how this happens. Anyway, all right, let's get back over to this and keep rolling here, shall we? Next up, by the way, I've turned off super chats just for people who are wondering. We got a lot of questions still to get through, so I turned off the super chats. All right. Next up, we got, thank you for sending in those thoughts, Haunted Autumn. Appreciate that, man. Oh boy, Madam Web writes, time to bring back this classic joke. Be careful, everyone. I had 2 tickets for Madam Web in my car, and someone broke in and left 4 more. You know, somebody else left a comment on my Madam Web review. It's, and I don't know if this is an old joke or not, but I've never heard it, so I laughed a lot. They said, Madam Web is the kind of movie you walk out on, even if you're watching it on an airplane. Madam Web is the kind of movie you walk out on, even if you're watching it on an airplane. Yeah, that was that's very applicable here. Oh boy, that's very applicable here. All right, next up, Bobby Jackson writes, assuming it takes place on Earth 616, and since we believe Fantastic Four will take place in the 60s, do you think we could get cameos of younger Hank Pym and Howard Stark with Reed/Fantastic Four? You know, we were talking about that the other day. Now, look, there's a possibility here. Let's get this out of the way first. There is a possibility that that the Fantastic Four will start in the same universe that Photon is in at the end of the Marvels when Hank McCoy Beast shows up, that there is a chance that this could be taking place in that universe. That would explain very easily why nobody had ever mentioned the Fantastic Four or anything like that. So that's a possibility. I don't think it's likely. I don't think it's likely that that's where Fantastic Four takes place. I think I'm going to guess it will take place in the 616, but that's just a guess. Yeah, it's very possible that we could see a young Howard Stark or a young Hank Pym. Yeah, I think that's possible. Not necessarily automatic, not a guarantee. But it is possible. And remember, keep in mind, even though it's going to take place in the 60s, we don't know how much of it will take place in the 60s. Will the first 10 minutes take place in the 60s? And then they go into outer space and get lost and then come back and it's 2024? Maybe. Or does the 90% of the movie take place, like Captain America, the First Avenger? Does 90% of the movie take place in that time period and then only at the end they come across? We'll have to find out. But if a significant part of it happens in the 60s, Bobby, I do think there is a decent chance that we could see, not probable, but a decent chance that we could see maybe another Hank Pym and Howard Stark. All right. Tim writes, sadly, watched Madam Web earlier and it was horrible. I'm sorry. I'm sorry you had to see that. But here's the thing. All movies are subjective. And that means all of us, including you, all of us, and yes, I'm talking to you, all of us have movies that everybody hated that we like. We all have them. We all have those movies that everybody hated, but we liked. And we also have movies that we hated that everybody else liked, right? That's the nature of movies. So there are going to be people who go in and watch Madam Web and enjoy it. Doesn't mean they have bad taste. It just means that movie worked for them, and that's fine. And I'm happy for those people that do go in to see it and get entertained. I'm happy for them. That's great. But I have to just warn the rest of you. I think it is, while there is a chance you may like it, I think the chances are low. Oh, listen, Sir Grizzle, I love The Golden Child too. I must be purged. I love The Golden Child. I don't care what anybody says. I think Golden Child is great. Okay. Next up, Murray Reich writes, is Madam Web worse than Argyle? No, because Argyle to me was so bad. Yeah, Argyle's really bad. But it had way more redeeming qualities to it than Madam Web does. I mean, Madam Web is just a dumpster fire. Argyle's a bad film. Madam Web's a dumpster fire, in my opinion. So yeah, Madam Web is worse than Argyle, in my opinion. Thanks for asking, Murray. All right, next up. Jacob Hirsch writes, maybe people at Deadpool knew we'd speculate about the Age of Ultron connection, and in actuality, there's just a scene that takes place in Canada. Oh yeah, listen, the fact that in the middle console in the Deadpool trailer, they're showing a quick shot of Age of Ultron when they're battling in that forest, and then, oh, now Deadpool's in a forest. I'm not a geography. I don't have my doctorate in geography. Okay. I'm not what they would call a botanist, but from the best of my recollection, we got a lot of forests. There are a lot of forests all over the world. There's a forest right over there, as a matter of fact. I'm looking through my window here. I got a great view. You can't see the view, but I got a great view of my office here, right over my computer monitor, of this great mountain ridge, and it's covered with forest. There's forest everywhere. So just because Deadpool is in a forest and the Age of Ultron battle happened in a forest, I don't think that necessarily means they're the same thing. Could it be? It's possible. It's actually Starkiller Base, which was filled with forest. Lots and lots and lots of forest. It could be a forest on another planet. There's a lot of forests on Earth, but it could even be a forest on another planet. All right, let's move on here. Next up, Tim writes, did you notice the villain actor's voice was dubbed? Let's put it this way. If it was dubbed, wait, do we know that? Is that a fact? By the way, is that a fact? You said, did you notice the villain's voice was dubbed? Is that a confirmed fact? Guys in live chat, let me know if you know if that's. He's talking about the villain in Madam Web, by the way. Nora K is saying yes. John AM is saying yes. Okay, see, I did not know that. See, that would explain a lot. Because I said today on the John Campea Show that was the worst performance I had ever seen in a comic book movie. And I don't say that just to gang pile on Madam Web. I don't say that to be mean. It's just that was the worst performance I have ever seen in a comic book movie. It was totally wooden. It was completely lifeless. If the actor had his voice dubbed over by somebody else, that explains a lot. That would explain a lot. Because I had no idea. But now that, as I look back now after you said that, that tracks. And it was done horribly. Done horribly. All right, next up. S. Macaulay 600 writes, "Hey, John. My friend and I have seen the last 2 Deadpool movies. He normally doesn't like superhero movies, and he asked me if he should know anything about the MCU. Does he need to know that much?" Well, first of all, disclaimer, I haven't seen Deadpool 3. So, I don't know. Okay, as somebody who hasn't seen Deadpool 3, though, my guess is you won't have to have seen anything. Like, we talked about this the other day, right? Even the fact that the TVA shows up, I don't think you need to have watched Loki because they don't seem that important. Like, if you're just watching the trailer and when you watched the Marvels trailer and you saw this Ms. Marvel flying around in this photon, you have no idea who you are. The trailer makes you feel like you're missing something. It makes you feel like I'm behind. Like I'm behind on the pre-required reading. Like this trailer is acting like I should know who these people are, and I have no idea who they are, right? The Deadpool trailer didn't feel like that at all. It felt like, oh, okay, here's some interdimensional police force, and they're recruiting Wade. I don't think if you've never seen Loki, you would feel like you're lost watching that trailer. So my guess is that you probably don't have to have watched anything else in the MCU to be able to watch Deadpool 3. Again, I may change my tune once I see the movie, but right now that's kind of my guess. All right, guys, listen. We're going to take one more quick break here to thank another sponsor of today's episode, our friends over at Harry's. Guys, we want to take a second to thank a sponsor of today's video, Harry's. You know, guys, in order to start the John Campea Show, I had to leave my high-paying corporate job in order to set myself up to be happier and enjoy more personal success. Because sometimes to get what you want, you have to challenge the status quo and blaze your own trail. And that's exactly what the folks at Harry's did. You see, at Harry's, they saw customers getting ripped off by questionable products in the shaving industry and decided to do something better. Harry's decided to pave their own road by making beautifully designed razors for a fraction of the price of the other big brands. Exceptional products, honest prices. That's Harry's. I have fallen in love with Harry's, from their foaming shaving gel that feels just luxurious on the skin to their incredible razor that feels just as good in the hand as it does going over your skin. They've got rich, lathering, skin-softening body wash in scents like redwood, wylands, and stone. You see, Harry's provides German-engineered blades made in their own factory that stay sharp longer. You can get a 5-blade razor, weighted handle, foaming shave gel, and a travel cover for just $3 at harrys.com/Campea. Don't settle for the status quo. Blaze your own trail with Harry's. Get started with a $13 trial set for just $3 at harrys.com/Campea. That's harrys.com/Campea for a $3 trial set. And thank you to our friends at Harry's for sponsoring today's episode. All right, guys, let's get through the remainder of your questions here, shall we? And by the way, it's Macaulay. Thanks a lot for sending that in, man. Next up, we got Andy Hillier, who writes, "Am I the only one excited for season 6 premiere of The Rookie?" Oh, I love The Rookie. That's Nathan Fillion's show. It's oddly watchable. Like I quite enjoy. Maybe I shouldn't say I love the show, but I quite enjoy The Rookie. They've had some behind the scenes drama with the show and everything like that, but I've quite enjoyed it. I think Nathan Fillion's great. My one problem with The Rookie, and I'll see if I can pull this up here, but The Rookie, the one problem with The Rookie that I've had is that over the last couple of seasons, like the first season and 2 of The Rookie, I don't know how many of you guys watch it. The show was I mean, there's a lot of characters, many good characters, a lot of inner character drama and stuff like that. Good stuff going on there. But it was primarily about Nathan Fillion's character. He is the rookie, right? He's a guy who in his mid-40s decides to change careers and become a police officer. And he's like this old guy who's the rookie on the force. He's the title's sake of the show. So for the first 2 seasons, even though the show is about all the characters, it was primarily his show. Like he was the main character. It wasn't 90% him and 10% everybody else, but it was like 40% him, 10% this character, 10% this character. You know, it was balanced, but primarily Nathan Fillion's show. And he's the best character in the show, even though all the characters are good. But the last couple of seasons, they've made it less and less about his character. Like he's now just another one of the ensemble. And I feel like by doing that, and listen, there's something to be said about exploring the other rich characters. That's fine. That's fine. I get that. Nathan Fillion doesn't have to be the center stage spotlight every single episode, but he's the kind of heart and soul of the show. And by taking more and more of the attention off of him and just making it more about the other characters, to me, it's lost some of its identity. It's lost a bunch of its identity. And I really hope that going into this new season, they kind of again, don't make it all about him, but I hope they put more of the spotlight back on Nathan Fillion's character. So, yeah, there's that. Anyway, good Canadian kid, Nathan Fillion. Next up, we go to Ian McAllister, who writes, I took my girlfriend to see Madam Web on Valentine's Day and she broke up with me. That would be justified. If there is justified, like if you had to go to court, if your girlfriend had to go to court to break up with you, if she went in front of the judge and the judge says, young lady, why should I grant this relationship breakup? She says, Your Honor, it was Valentine's Day. He's like, yeah. And he took me to see Madam Web. Case dismissed, breakup granted. Yeah, that would be justifiable grounds for breakup, I think. All right, Ian McAllister also writes, 1 of 2. I'll be honest. On the topic of universally hated films, a film that really shaped me as a child and was a cornerstone childhood memory was Aragon. Okay. Me and my whole family watch it together and love it. I saw it before I read the books, and to this day, I still love it. Do you love any hated movies? Oh, well, first of all, Aragon, listen, remember I was just talking about a minute ago that all of us, including you, whoever you are that's watching this right now, we all have movies that everybody universally hates, but that we kind of like. We all have them. We all have them. Maybe not many of them, but we all have them. Yeah, Aragon to me is a truly awful movie. Like really bad. And I didn't read that's not true. That's a lie. When I saw the movie, I had not yet read the book. Okay, so I wasn't going in with book bias because I hadn't read the book yet when I saw the movie. Like to me, it was just really, truly awful. But all film is subjective. If you liked it, you liked it. Yeah, I got a couple of films that I totally love that I think most people really hate. And I'm not talking ironically love. Like I'm not talking about a movie like Cool as Ice that is so bad, it's awesome. I'm not talking about that. I mean, I'm talking about movies that people really, really, really dislike and I frankly really enjoy. Michael, why am I suddenly freezing on Michael Bay's name? Michael Bay's Armageddon. I love that movie. I know everybody hates it. That's fine. Leaving on a jet plane. Don't know when I'll be back again. It's a beautiful scene. It's a beautiful scene. Yeah, I love that movie. I'm trying to think of a couple of others. I'm sure there's probably Like, I like every DC movie except for Harley Quinn and Wonder Woman 1984. But there are a couple of DC movies that almost everybody hates that I really, really liked. Yeah, there's a bunch. I mean, it's hard for me to think of them off the top of my head, but there's a bunch. Eragon is a great one, though. That's a great one to bring up. Oh, this is a good question. What happened with I Am Number 4? Want to know a true story? So, I Am Number 4. And I'm trying to remember the name of the girl. Hold on a second. I Am Number 4 cat. I'm trying to remember the name of the girl who, Teresa Palmer. Oh, listen. Karen Amy says, Teresa Palmer is not just like a global beauty, but I think she's really good. It was also Teresa Palmer who was in Warm Bodies with Nicholas Hoult? I think that was her too. Anyway. Anne and I were not yet married. We were still kind of in our dating state. We're getting ready to get married. Okay, we were getting close to getting married, but we weren't married yet. And I took Anne with me to this special press screening of I Am Number 4. And there was going to be an after party with some of the cast there. For most of these movies of press screenings, they don't. Very, 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 very rarely will they have like an after party. That's usually only for premieres, but this was like a special press screening. They had an after party and all this kind of stuff. So, I mean, Anne already loved me because she was getting ready to marry me, right? So she already loved me. Anne already loved me. And I take her with me to this I Am Number 4 screening. This is back in 2011. And so the cast is there, but one of the people that was there that was not in the cast was Zac Efron. Zac Efron was there. And Anne had a huge celeb crush on Zac Efron. Now, as it so happens, a couple of years before this event, I had met Zac Efron because he had done this movie, Me and, oh crap, what was it called? What was the one he did with Claire Danes? Me and somebody in the live chat. Bonus points if you remember that. Me and Orson Welles. That was it. Sorry, I got to it before the live chat could answer it. So a couple of years earlier, Zac Efron did this little film called Me and Orson Welles, which is a wonderful movie, by the way. And Zac Efron is awesome in it. So Me and Orson Welles, he did this little movie, and I had a really good sit down with him, and I got to talk to him about the movie for a while. We had a really good time, really, really good conversation, right? So here we are at this I Am Number 4 post-screening party. And I guess Zac Efron and Teresa Palmer were really good friends. And he's in LA, so he came to this after party. So like Anna's like, oh my God, it's Zac Efron. I'm like, it is Zac Efron. I said, do you want me to take you over and we can try to say hi? And Anna's like, oh, I don't know. Like, it's Zac Efron. I go, yeah, let's go over and say hi. So, and this is why Zac Efron, I'm a big fan of Zac Efron. Like I said, I fell in love with him as an actor for Me and Orson Welles. And I've just continued to be impressed with him. I love Zac Efron. But this night, Zac Efron forever reserved his place in Johnny's good books. Because what happened was, I'm walking Ann over and we're just going to be fans. And I'm thinking, I'm just going to go over, excuse me, Mr. Efron. We just wanted to say, my wife Ann and I just wanted to say we're big fans and blah, 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 right? So we're walking up to him. And Zac Efron looks up and goes, hey, John. Now, first of all, just for me, that was pretty cool because I am a fucking nobody from Canada who is doing like some little YouTube thing, whatever. And Zac Efron, I'm walking up to Zac Efron, who I'm a big fan of, and he looks at me and goes, hey, John. That's one thing. But here's where it was really good. I was with, oh my God, where did my screen go? My screen just completely went down. Okay, there we go. I, at the time, was standing with, I was standing there with this young lady, That's my wife. That's Ann. So I'm standing there with Ann. I'm walking Ann, who has a crush on Zac Efron. And I'm with this girl that I'm in love with, right? And she's in love with Zac Efron. And what she sees is Zac Efron look up, point at me and go, "Hey, John." I'm like, that just got me so many points with my girl. She wasn't my wife yet. I'm just like, that just got me so many points with my girl. Yeah, that put me in like, if Zac Efron recognized, like, if Zac Efron's forever my good books, that put me in Ann's good books. I mean, she was going to marry me anyway, but that made me feel so cool. Like, I looked so cool to Ann. I don't think I've ever looked cool to Ann ever since. Yeah. I don't think a single more time in the last 13 years have I looked cool to Ann. But in that moment, on that night, I looked cool to Ann. And the rest is history. So yes, I will forever be I will forever be a fan of Zac Efron. Now, I don't know if I bumped into Zac Efron again today, I don't know if he'd still remember me or remember. I mean, listen, these guys have people, like thousands of people interview him. I was really super impressed they remember my name, but he may not recognize me ever again from a criminal lineup, but he will forever be in my good books for making me look cool for one time in my life in front of Ann. That'll do it. All right. That was a story nobody asked for, but I thought I'd tell it anyway. Okay. Next up. Let's see. Ian McAllister writes, I just got the Samsung Frame TV. That thing looks really cool. And I love it. I just watched Aragon again, and the Dragon Sapphire still looks great. Have you guys seen this thing? Hold a second. Samsung Frame TV. Have you guys seen this thing? It's really cool. See if I can get it, because it's a TV, but it's made to look. I mean, it's not all that complex of a concept here. It's made to look like an art frame. And there's different kind of looks that you can have with it. And then you can have your TV set to rotating pictures of art, and it just looks like an art install on your wall. And then all of a sudden you're playing a movie on it. They look really, really cool. Hey, if you need one, our viewer here, Biohazard, is I sell them at Best Buy. I mean, they look really cool. Now, Ann and I just bought an 85-inch TV. So I think we're good for a while. But yeah, those things look really, really cool. I'm kind of jealous that you have one. All right, next up, we've got Christopher Brickner, who writes, help me understand. In Madam Web, multiple Spider-Women make their film debut only to have powers in a vision to tease a sequel instead of the girls having powers in the first film, because why? Well, okay, God, Christopher, can I just say, Christopher, fuck you, because you're going to make me defend Madam Web? I hate you a little bit for this. I think I hate you a little bit. So you're going to make me defend Madam Web. Okay. I will defend Madam Web in this one way. It is what serves the story. Remember, this movie takes place in 2003, right? Just before Peter Parker is born. Like, we meet Uncle Ben, and we meet Peter's mother, who is very, very pregnant and getting ready to go into labor. So it takes place in 2003. It's actually important to the story, for what it's worth, that these girls do not yet have their powers. Remember, this guy is after them to kill them because he's had a vision that at some time in his future, these three girls get powers and kill him. And so the whole premise of the film is that he is out to kill these girls before they get powers, before they can kill him later in the future. So it's actually important to the story that they not yet have their powers, but that we understand that sometime in the future that they do. And listen, that concept could have worked if you wrote a good script and you wrote a good story around that concept. It's a little Terminator-ish, yes, but it is a concept that totally could have worked. It could have worked if you gave care and attention and got the right screenwriters for it. But unfortunately, they did not. They saw the press good button or press bad button, and they chose to press the bad button. Anyway, all right, Mr. I writes, more wooden performance, Dakota Johnson and Madam Web, or Tommy Wiseau in the room? I wouldn't qualify what Wiseau was in the room as wooden. There's a lot going on there with Tommy Wiseau in the room. So, and here's the thing, Dakota Johnson, and remember, I don't want to come across as some Dakota Johnson. I think she's a good actress. I quite like Dakota Johnson. I do. So I am left with the only feasible explanation that she really just didn't care about this movie because there was like no effort. Because I know she's good. I'm not saying she's one of the great actresses of our time. No, she's not. But I know she's good. If she wasn't a good actress, then I wouldn't say she wasn't trying. But I know she's a good actress. And I don't think she was trying very hard in this movie. So I don't know that you can compare the two, Mr. I think they're two different things. One is not necessarily wooden. All right, next up. Rav writes, maybe the reason the Spider-Girls wanted to kill the guy was because he was after them in the first place. Saw it today and it didn't make any sense. But here's the point. It becomes a time paradox, right? They can't have known he was after them in the past because in the past they end up killing him. So he would not still be alive later in the future. And here's the thing too in the movie. In the movie, it doesn't show the girls. Like this is one of the many huge mistakes they make. In the movie, it's not like these three Spider Women show up at the guy's house and then just they were put in a kill or be killed situation. It wasn't like they killed him in self-defense. It's not like they ended up having to kill him because he was in the midst of murdering a hospital full of babies or something. No. In the movie, they literally just show up to his house. It's his apartment. We'll just call it his house. They literally just show up to his house in the middle of the night. He's an old man by this point, and they just literally straight up gank him. Like they just kill him. They get into a bit of a fight with him. Like they're there to attack him. They get him, and then they execute him. Like they literally bring him to the window and then just throw him out the window. They kill him execution style, right? It's like in his dream, like he's a bad guy in the movie for sure, but in his dream, they're the villains. Like it just made no sense. The movie makes no sense whatsoever. Anyway, all right, next up, Steven writes, I'm pretty sure the video games and the animated movies basically bankroll these cinematic turds. Well, no, the games don't because that's a different division. And these big corporations, they are broken into different divisions and they all have their individual budgets and stuff like that. So no, the video games don't bankroll the movies. The movies got to bankroll themselves. They've got their movie division has got their own bankroll. They got their own stuff and you got to survive. That's why, like when we're talking about Apple TV, when we're talking about Apple TV, people say, well, they can do this with their TV shows and Apple TV because Apple has like $2 trillion. Apple TV division does not have $2 trillion. They are their own division and they've got to work. They're given a budget by Apple, yes, but then they got to make it work with that budget. So yeah, it's not the video games that bankroll the movies. Although now Sony has a little bit of crossing of the streams, right? Because they've literally set up a PlayStation entertainment division. Now you got PlayStation as its own division developing movies and TV shows like The Last of Us, which was awesome. So maybe there is a little bit of a cross. Maybe I spoke too soon. Maybe there is a little bit of the crossing of the streams there. All right. Thanks for that, Steven. Appreciate that, man. Next up. What was part one? Oh, there's Andy's part one. Okay, part one. Between Venom, Venom 2, Morbius, and Madam Web, Sony is still stuck in the 2000s mindset of making superhero films. It also almost feels like they looked down on the genre in live action. Oh, I disagree with you, Andy, because remember, I think Venom and Venom 2 were quite good. I think Venom 1 is really good. I really, really enjoy that film. Venom 2 I was entertained by, not quite as good, but I never felt at all, like even with whatever problems I have, and every movie has problems, but even with the problems I have, I don't believe at all that, I don't agree with you that, and just because I don't agree, that doesn't mean you're wrong. I'm just saying I don't agree. I don't agree that Venom felt like it was made with a 2000s mindset. It was really fun and entertaining. And you know what? I don't think Madam Web was stuck in a 2000s mindset either. It's just bad. Like amidst the myriad of problems with Madam Web, it's not that, it just felt like they took a 2000s approach to make it. No. They just made a really bad movie in 2024. They just made a really, really bad movie. Morbius. I could see that criticism with Morbius, upon reflection. Morbius did kind of a little bit feel like it had a 2000s approach to a superhero film. So I could see that with Morbius a little bit, but I don't agree with that with Madam Web. It was just a very bad movie. And I don't agree with it with the Venom films either. But it's an interesting, maybe something I'll have to look out for a little bit more if for whatever reason I begin to hate myself enough to watch Madam Web again. We'll find out. All right. Let's see. Next up. Oplock writes, "Hey, John, big fan. Thank you so much. Marvel writes for movies only." What are we talking about? I'm sorry, I'm not quite sure what it is you're asking or saying. Anyway, okay. Sorry about that, Oplock. Orange Hand writes, "My brother's considering seeing Madam Web just for Sydney Sweeney. For her acting, I asked. His reply, she's an actress?" Hey, listen, she is an actress, and she's not a bad actress. You never know that from Madam Web, but she's an actress, and she's not a bad actress. And look, there's no getting around. She's beautiful. Actually, let me look something up here. Sydney Sweeney. Just gotta look this up. Oh yeah, she's supposed to be like some 15-year-old girl. She's 26 years old. And at being 26 and not 15, I can say, yeah, she's gorgeous. I mean, she's hot. I mean, there's no getting around that. Absolutely, she's a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful individual. And she's very cute. And listen, if all your friend wants to do is go to Madam Web, put on some headphones, crank up Drake, and just watch the screen for the visuals of Sydney Sweeney running around in her short little schoolgirl kilt in the movie, then your friend may have a good time. She was good in Euphoria. I mean, she's a good actress. I like her. But yeah, just tell them to go to the movie, sit in the back, pop on some headphones, bring up the Drake, and just watch her running around in her schoolgirl kilt, and he might have an all right good time. And Marcus Y is saying, and tell him to pick up the Dune popcorn bucket and complete your good time out at the movies that night. All right. Let's keep going here. Next up, we've got Imagine Jim, who writes, in Doctor Strange Multiverse of... Guys, please don't write in acronyms. In Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness, Doctor Strange said to Reed Richards, didn't y'all chart in the 60s? Could this be a subtle call out to the period piece? No, because that's clearly a very different Reed Richards, right? It's a totally different thing. So I don't think that's a crossing. Plus, yeah, I don't think that was a cross-pollination intentionally, at least. I don't think that was their intention. I could be wrong about that. Like, we may hear Kevin Feige do an interview someday and say it was, that they were trying to do like a little bit of foreshadowing. But that's when the first family of Marvel came around, was in the 60s. So, but I don't think it was any kind of reference to the movie. I could be wrong about that, but I don't think there was. All right. Next up, Raymond Verrata writes, People's Choice Awards with Simu Liu this weekend. Yeah, I don't care about the People's Choice Awards. The People's Choice Awards are stupid, in my opinion. Like, don't get me wrong. Good Canadian kid, Simu Liu. Support him 100%. Love the guy. But I don't really give two squirts of piss about an award show where, say, people who saw 5 movies last year get to vote on what the best movie of the year is. I don't really give a shit. Fan voted awards are garbage and nonsense. I have no business voting in a Best Movie of the Year award, unless it's the John Campea Show Awards or something like that. On that, I have no business, even though I saw like 75 movies last year. But yeah, that's why the MTV Movie Awards are useless and stupid, and the People's Choice is dumb. Like, really. So who's voting on this? The people. Okay, so you mean like some teenage girl who saw 4 movies last year gets to, but one of them was Barbie, is gonna just like an army is just gonna vote for Barbie as Best Movie of the Year. That's what happens at these things. That's why I don't care about. Now listen, fan voted awards. Let's say, okay, here's where I would like a fan voted award. If Fandango, and I'll get to why I'm mentioning Fandango specifically. If Fandango put together a People's Choice kind of awards, like a fan voted awards for movies one year, but Fandango only allowed people to vote who saw a minimum of 30 films last year. I'm making up a number, but let's say 30 films. And Fandango can verify that because on everybody's on their Fandango account, they'll tell them, oh yeah, they bought tickets to 37 different movies this year. So if Fandango, and I say Fandango because they can verify that people saw the movies, if Fandango's did a viewer voted award show, a viewer audience voted movie awards, and they said minimum 30 films, then I would take it a little bit more seriously, right? Because when 200 films come out and you're letting people vote who saw 6 of them, that means your awards have no value. There's no merit to it. Make it so that the people voting actually saw minimum 30 films. I would be interested in that one. I mean, it's still not, it's still not SAG and it's still not the Academy Awards, but then I would be interested in a fan. Again, when you got an award show where somebody can watch 3 movies in the year and vote, and their vote counts just as much as some major film fan who saw 70 movies last year, then it's a useless award. I don't really care about them, unfortunately. Even if my boy Simu Liu is hosting it. All right. Nerds Engage sends in a $20 super chat. Thank you, Nerds Engage, for supporting us on that level, man. And Nerds Engage writes, in Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness, when talking to Reed, he asked, did you just accidentally put in 2 different things under the same, with 2 different names? Anyway, thank you for that, and thank you for supporting our channel. Let's see, next up. YouTube Pump Life writes, the only movies AT&T can look back on and say that you probably meant they, and say that they are day and date does work. No, it doesn't. Is Godzilla vs. Kong and Dune. Both made 400 million plus. But what if it was only in theaters? How much? Oh yeah, it would have been a shit more ton of money. I'm not necessarily going to say double, but I'll say close to double. When Dune got released in theaters, they put it on HBO on the same day. They took a knife and slit their Achilles. Right? There was no, that's why Christopher Nolan got so pissed and left Warner Brothers. That's why Denis Villeneuve wrote that really angry op-ed letter. Like, all that stuff. Now, I'm not necessarily going to say Dune would have made 800 million or close to $1 billion, but maybe close to doubling. Hard to say with Kong versus Godzilla because the previous movies didn't necessarily do that much more, but yeah, at least for Dune, I think it would have gotten maybe 700 million. It would have. I literally think they left like $300 million on the table. I think they left that on the table. Somebody's saying the previous question is new, John. I'm going to go back to that Nerds Engaged question just to make sure I'm not missing anything. All right. In Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness, when talking to Reed, he asked, didn't you guys chart in the 60s, i.e. music charts? Oh, I see, because their name's Fantastic Four. Pedro put up music references in his announcement, a throwaway line, or maybe like boys, they tried to make Fantastic F4 a band. Maybe. I think it was more of a sarcastic, snarky joke that Doctor Strange was making. I think that was more of a sarcastic, snarky joke, more than a foreshadowing of anything. You know what I'm saying? So that would be my guess at that point, at any rate, Nerds Engage. Anyway, thanks for sending that in, man. I appreciate it. And again, thank you for supporting us on that level, dude. We really appreciate that. All right. Next up, FR35 writes, have you heard any news about Nosferatu? Maybe a trailer coming soon. No, that's the new Robert Eggers film. I love Robert Eggers as a director. I loved Witch. I loved The Northman. I don't know what the hell The Lighthouse was. I mean, I don't know that I loved or hated that movie. I think about it a lot, and I still don't know what the hell that movie was about. But The Lighthouse, I love him as a director. I don't have any more news, though. I haven't heard any more significant news at any rate about that movie, but I'm looking forward to it because it's Robert Eggers. All right. Mr. I writes, one of two. Oh, but I guess we turned off super chats before we had a chance to get part 2 in. Let me see what I can do with this, Mr. I. All right. Got a show question. I tried to send a super chat on the John Campea Show earlier and didn't even have the option to, even at the beginning of the show, but I can send them here. Okay. Just like, I mean, it sounds like you got the whole question in there. It doesn't sound like maybe there wasn't a part 2. Okay, so we only have so much time to do the John Campea Show. I've been trying to keep the show to an hour and a half, and it's been getting more and more like close to and sometimes going over 2 hours long, but whatever. So some days, a lot of super chats get sent in even before we start the show. Like, we turn on the super chats probably about 45 minutes before the show starts. And once, like, I tell Jonathan, hey, once this many super chats come in, just turn off the super chats. I acknowledge that's a pretty good problem to have. Like, most YouTubers are trying to figure out ways to get more super chats. And I'm like, every day, I'm like, turn off the super chats. We got too many. We don't have enough time. Just turn them off. So there are times when it doesn't happen often, but there are times when we have turned off the super chats by the time the show starts. And sometimes, like, we turn off the super chats like just 5 or 10 minutes after the show starts. So yeah. And then, like, I've seen the live chat all the time, even when we're doing open mics. Like, we get into the second half of the show and people are like, how come I can't see where to send in super chats? Where's super chats? So I'm like, I've already turned them off because I can't be here all night. Like, we've been doing open mic now for an hour and 45 minutes already, which, listen, is a long time to do. Streaming this long when it's just you and I don't have anybody else to talk, to give me a break to stop talking. Whenever I talk about that, and by the way, I got a question for you guys in a second, but I'll get to that in a minute. Some people will say to me, well, John, there are Twitch streamers who like stream for 5 hours. I'm like, yeah, and that's fine. But 4 of those 5 hours is them not talking. They're playing the game they're playing. And then they'll talk, but they don't talk for like 5 hours straight. And so my voice often takes a beating because I do like a couple of hours in the morning with the John Campea Show and then do a couple hours again in the afternoon. And my voice kind of gets wrecked a little bit because there's no break, right? And anyway, that's why sometimes you may go to try to send in a super chat. And by the way, I appreciate so much that you're trying to send in a super chat. Thank you for supporting us. But that we often will have them turned off because we don't have time to keep answering them. But anyway, so get them in when you can get them in. And then if they're still on, send them in. And if this turned off, then wait till the next show. All right, guys, I'm going to take a few minutes here to take some of your questions who are just watching live in the live chat. So do me a favor, if you're watching in the live chat and you have a question, and I'm not going to answer all the questions, just, I'm going to pick out a couple, but format it like this: question, and then write your question. See how I just put that in? Write in capital letters, question, then put colon, and then write your question. I'll pick out a couple and I'll answer a couple. And yeah, I said I have a question to ask you guys, but I will ask that in a bit. Lugat asks, do you like pie? Honestly, not much. I don't like fruit in pastries. I don't like it. I like to eat an apple. I like to eat an orange. I don't like apple in stuff or orange in stuff or pear in stuff. So I like, Boston cream pie. I like pudding pie. I like lemon meringue pie. But generally, I don't like a lot of pies, to be honest with you. Dominic Suma writes, are you keeping the studio for another year? Well, let me say this. Next week, I'm going to be, for those of you who are channel members, and by the way, thank you to all of you who are channel members. Next week, we're going to be doing a town hall meeting with the channel members, and I will have some announcements to make. A part of those announcements that I'm going to be making to our channel members is going to be kind of a part of it anyway. Is going to be kind of sort of in a way addressing that question. So I cannot answer that question right now. That will be for our channel members next week. So if you're a channel member, keep your eyes open for when I announce that we're going to be having our town hall meeting for that. All right. Let me see. Michael Gonzalez is asking, will you be watching X-Men 97? Yes, I will. At least I'll start watching it. I'll start it. And then we'll see if I'll continue to watch it, see if it's any good or not. Let's see. Dune 2 opening weekend predictions. I say $85 million. I could be way off on that, but my guess right now, $85 million. King Daddy Goat. John, will we get a Madam Web 2? Depends on if God hates us. Let's see. This is a good question. Pablo Diablo is writing, are you looking more forward to Gunn's Superman movie or Fantastic Four? I'm looking forward to both of them. Now, with Fantastic Four, you got Matt Shakman, who did WandaVision, did such a great job on that. You've got a killer cast. You got solid writers. I'm very much looking forward to that. But listen, it's James Gunn. And it's Superman. So if I was on an airplane tomorrow and they said, hey, you got a choice. We can show you Fantastic Four from the future, or we can show you Superman Legacy from the future, but you only got time to watch one. Which one you're watching? I'm watching James Gunn's Superman Legacy. I'm super excited for Fantastic Four. I am, but I'm watching James Gunn's Superman Legacy for sure. Let's see here. Question, which current Star Trek show are you more hyped for its season? Star Trek Strange New Worlds. It's the best Star Trek we've had since Next Generation. I still think Next Generation is the gold standard for Star Trek, but I love Star Trek Strange New Worlds. It's great. Not quite as good as Next Generation, but I think it's absolutely fantastic. I love it, and I can't wait for it to come back. Let's see here. All right. Mega Chris writes, are you still planning to retire the show in 2025? Yes, that's still the plan. Now, look, when I say retire, I will probably still do an audio only, maybe a weekly or 2 times a week audio podcast. Like I'll probably still podcast, audio only podcast. But, I've been doing this for a long time, longer than most people. And I do a lot in doing daily hours long shows every single day. Not many people do what I do. And you know, I'm very lucky that, listen, I'm not the sharpest tool in the shed, but one of the things I've always been very, very good at is managing my money. I'm a cheap bastard. And fortunately, I've managed my money to the point that I can retire now. I've made some smart investments. I've been very good at putting my money away. I have not been frivolous with my money. I don't spend X number of dollars on this habit or that habit or whatever. And I've been very good with my money. And I'm fortunate enough to be in a position that I financially I can just retire now if I wanted to. But I still want to do it for a little while. I at least want to get to Superman Legacy, and then maybe even to the end of the year. And you know, things can change. I might be doing the show and just think, you know what, I'll give it one more year or something like that after that. I don't know, maybe. But yeah, the plan as it is to retire. And, you know, some people are asking, you know, oh, somebody take over show. No, I'm not going to be handing over my show to anybody. When John Campea retires, the John Campea Show is done. And if anybody working with me wants to do their own thing, I will promote them and I'll encourage them and I'll help them. But the John Campea Show ends when John Campea isn't doing it anymore. So yeah. Let's see. Roy Springer writes, how much days a week do you work out? You're jacked. I wouldn't say I'm jacked. I'm a big guy. I'm not a huge guy. I think one of the things that people get surprised at when they meet me is for some reason there's a perception that I'm like really short. Maybe it's because you only ever see me from here up. But people think I'm really short and maybe think I'm a smaller guy. Anyway, Ann and I, we work out at the UFC gym. I've been going there for a very, very long time. We probably work out 4 to 5 days a week is when we train in the morning. So we get up at like 5:30 or 6, and then we go to the gym because that's the only time of the day that we really have to go to the gym. And then we come back and, then get ready and go to work, stuff like that. So that's how often we work out. Let's see here. Trying to find some more questions. Sorry, the questions are going by pretty quick. Anyway, okay, so now I'll get to my question for you guys. Okay, I got a question for you guys. I see this in the comments a bunch, and I want to get your guys' opinion on this, and tell me your thoughts. So, as a part of the John Campea Show, we have sponsors, right? You met some of them on today's show.
Guys, we want to take a second to think of sponsor this video.
Guys, our friends over at Fume, our friends over at Harry's. Like we have sponsors. And I sometimes get comments from people who are like, oh, why do you have to put commercials? Why do you have to put, I pay for YouTube Premium so I don't have to watch commercials. And like, okay, let me tell you my thought process here first, and then I'd be curious to know what you guys think. My thought process is, okay, hold on a second. The John Campea Show is nearly 2 hours long, sometimes longer than 2 hours. Sometimes it's an hour and a half, sometimes it's 2 hours, but we'll say close to 2 hours long, right? And we literally have 3 ad spots into. Now, most big YouTube channels, they do a 10-minute video and they have an ad, right? We have an almost 2-hour show, which means like one ad every 45. It averages out to like one ad for every 45 minutes of, or every 40 minutes of stuff that we of free YouTube show we do. And we put in like 3, sometimes at most we put in 4 ads, but that's like an average of 1 ad spot every 30 or 40 minutes. And the other thing you got to keep in mind is that contrary to what some people think, we are a very small YouTube channel. We always have been. I'm not just trying to blow smoke when I say like, I'm a nobody. I am a nobody, right? I'm not Dr. Disrespect. I'm not Linus Tech Tips. I'm not some guy with 3 million YouTube subscribers with like 20 million views a month and stuff like that. We are a small, quaint little YouTube channel. And like, for me to have the size of YouTube channel that I have, if I'm going to have a staff like Jonathan and Ray, and you guys don't even see half the stuff that they do for this channel and for you guys behind the scenes. Like, everybody sees them on the show and they think that's what their job is. That's not what their job is. Their job is done when the show is not on air. But if I'm going to have a staff, like if I'm going to pay people like Chris Carr to come in and be on the show, if I'm going to pay people like Robert Meyer Burnett to come in and be on the show, if I'm going to pay a staff to be here, I am far too small of a YouTube channel. For most channels, it would be my size. Far too small to have a staff and to put on the type of production that we put on. We're way too small, but we're able to do it because we have sponsors. And because we have sponsors, we're able to have the type of production value that we have in the John Campea Show. I'm able to pay people, like a lot of other people who have guests on their show, they don't pay them. I pay people for their time. I always have, I always will. I pay people for their time. So when Chris Carr comes in, I pay her, and I pay Rob, and I pay Jonathan, and I pay Ray, and I, buy the equipment that we need to try to make the show as good as we can. But we are otherwise a very small channel that shouldn't be able to afford that, but we do because we have sponsors. And having those is what makes it possible to do. So I understand the need that we have to do it. And I don't think it's very intrusive at all. Like if you watch a standard sitcom on television, a 30-minute time slot, you get nearly 8 minutes of commercials and you get 8 minutes of commercials and 22 minutes of programming. 8 minutes of commercials, 22 minutes of an actual. So an actual half-hour sitcom is actually only 22 minutes, or 22 minutes in a few seconds. You're getting 7.5 to 8 minutes of ads for 22 minutes. We are doing like 1 minute of ad for every 30 minutes of programming normally. Then when our segments, we put in one sponsor spot on our segments, and our segments can run anywhere from 7 to 12 to 15. We had a segment today that was 30 minutes long, only one ad spot, only one sponsor spot in a 30-minute video that we did doing our Madam Web breakdown, right? But I mean, that's for me to be able to afford to do a show that I want to do. Maybe our viewers don't consider that worth it. And I don't ask this isn't a rhetorical question. I'm not asking this facetiously. I'm legitimately asking. Like, would our viewers prefer it if it was just me, I had no staff, just doing videos like this one? Like if I did the John Campea Show just like this one, no staff, no guests, no nothing, but no sponsors. Like, would that be better? I don't know. And again, it's not a rhetorical question. It's not a rhetorical question. I'd be very curious to know what our viewers tend to think about that, because maybe I think it's not a big deal, but maybe there are those who do think it's a big deal. I don't know. I just wanted to throw that out there. And I can't read all the live chats going by right now, but do me a favor, when the video stream is done, and we're just about done here, do me a favor and jump in the comments of the stream and let me know what you guys think about that. I'm legitimately very curious to know your input and to hear your input. So please do that. Anyway, guys, that will do it for today's installment of Open Mic. Thank you so much for hanging out with me this afternoon, guys. I really appreciate it. And we'll, of course, be back again tomorrow. It's going to be me, Chris Carr, Jonathan, and Ray will be doing the John Campea Show tomorrow. We look forward to hopefully you guys will be joining us for that. So we look forward to seeing you guys again tomorrow. And yeah, that'll do it for me for now. And again, once again, want to remind you guys, if you guys want to send in a topic or question for the show, you don't have to wait for us to be live and use a super chat. You can use the tip link that's right here, streamelements.com/JohnCampea/tip. Send that in 24 hours a day. And unlike super chats, which we have to turn off at a certain point, that's open 24/7. So you can go ahead and send them there. Thank you guys, everybody, for being here. Again, if you're a YouTube, one of our channel members, keep your eyes open. We're going to be announcing the date of a town hall meeting next week. That's kind of significant. I hope you guys will make some time to come and join us if you are one of our channel members. So yeah, that'll do it for me for now, guys. Thanks so much I appreciate all of you so much. I'll talk to you guys later. And until next time, my friends. Bye-bye.